You have the extreme blessing and pleasure to have served on any sort of board. Okay? If you have, you know what I mean. But you will run into the literal expression that Jesus is describing today. Where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. Nothing is more infuriating than when you're bought into whatever the mission of this board is. School board, governing board, whatever it is. And there's somebody else who's not. Not only are they not bought in to your mission, whatever that happens to be, but they're bought in to somebody else's mission somewhere else. And this is a stepping stone to that. It was always a little infuriating for me. Politicians who would use one political office in order to gain notoriety, fame, experience for another political office. That's fine. It's not a problem. The problem is when you neglect the office you have for the sake of the office you're going to have. That drives me batty, because all you've demonstrated is you're going to sell us out for the sake of the next thing. You don't actually care about me, my mission, my school, whatever. But I've served on some of these boards where that person's not here for this thing. They're here for what this thing can do for them or for their other thing, because their real concern, their real treasure was elsewhere. And when you hear this come out of the mouth of Jesus Christ, this is not Patrick Lencioni. This is not one of those famous leadership people. This is not one of those famous government people. This is Jesus, right? So what's he talking about? Where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. Is your treasure in heaven? And what's the evidence you would look for where to? Well, preachers have given a few things, right? Classically, it's where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your money? And especially, we live in a world where those two things are pretty interchangeable. We use money as a representation of, I've worked this much. I've worked hard, not for you, but for somebody else. They gave me this goal. Would you please give me that bicycle, TV, car, cell phone, whatever? Where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your money? But another one is, what keeps you up at night? What concerns you? What makes you anxious? And if it's not the things of God, that's not, okay, great. None of us are perfect, right? The whole reason why we have these gospels is not for us to be condemned, but to be cut to the heart. Not to be left behind. I should have said it this way. Unfortunately, I didn't think of the turn of phrase until now. Not to be condemned, but to be converted. To realize, okay, my treasure is in Omaha right now. I know none of you, right? But there are going to be people that are usually 4:00 Mass people. They're not going to come to 4:00 Mass. Why? Because they're watching baseball. Is that the end of the world? No. But does it demonstrate that there's yet still some disunity that needs to be purified? Yes. Okay. And that is alive and well in all of us. It may not be a lot, but it's there. And the real critical thing is if you think it's not there, I guarantee you the dysfunction, the disconnect is bigger in you than in anybody else. But if you're convinced it is there, and that there is something that you can do about it. And I know I talked about this last Sunday. Difference between you get to and you ought to. You get to. You don't just have to. You get to be closer to Jesus. You get to take your treasure and put it in heaven so that your heart can be there as well. Now, I want you to hear, this is not primarily financial. It's about where is the concern of your heart. Jesus Christ just recognizes the very, 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 very broken nature of our humanity and says, You know, where your treasure is, that's where your heart's going to be. If you've invested yourself in the things of the world, guess where your heart's going to be? In the world. But if you want your heart to be in heaven, that's the real genius of this preaching event from Jesus. If you want your heart to be in heaven, you got to put your treasure there, because that's where it's going to be drawn.
Amen.